Hi everyone, welcome to the second part of the course, and in particular to the first section of Unit 3, and I've decided to call this Business as Unusual B Corporations. So what are we going to do? Well, overall in this part of the course we're going to take a look at how a relatively small socio-economic movement has started to challenge accepted and expected ways of how organisations should behave. We're not going to focus on a particular industry or geographical region though in this section. Instead, we're going to take a look at the general concept of what it means to be an organisation, the purpose of an organisation, and how this has and still is changing. We'll be asking whether businesses should be existing purely to maximise shareholder value. Should they only be concerned with making a profit? Or do they have other responsibilities that lie in more social and environmental contexts? Now, some of you at this point might be saying, aha, she's talking about social enterprises. Well, yes and no. Yes, you would be on the right track with the concept of social enterprise. Let me tackle this first. Definitions of social enterprise vary, so let's be super clear here. A social enterprise is exactly the same as a regular for-profit business. Its revenue is gained from activities produced by the company itself. In other words, its expenditure does not stem from donations or grants. That would be a charity. What makes a social enterprise different in comparison, though, to a for-profit enterprise is the profit achieved by the social enterprise is ploughed back into the company itself. At the end of the financial year, the balance sheet of a social enterprise should be zero, within a relatively small margin. And it is true to say that the growth in popularity of social enterprises has helped to challenge the historically accepted parameters of responsibility that face a business. To frame this within a sustainability model, we can say that historically most for-profit organisations have pursued economic sustainability only. Historically, remember. More contemporary times, though, have seen a shift in societal expectations. Simply put, we've started to care more about social welfare, local environments, pollution, climate change, and so on. And crucially, we, especially as consumers, have started to demand that the parameters of responsibility of for-profit companies be extended to include social and/or environmental sustainability issues. Simply put, society now expects for-profit enterprises to make a contribution to addressing local and global issues of sustainability that go beyond purely economic realms. I put an example of for-profit clothing manufacturer and retailer Benetton in this folder. Go to the link if you like and you can read all about their corporate social responsibility activities. It's quite a range. For now though, let's go back to social enterprises. We might like to add to our previous definition by including something about motivation. A social enterprise differs from a for-profit organisation on its primary aims or mission. Usually the main reason as to why a social enterprise is started, developed and nurtured and possibly grown is to address some sort of social or environmental issue. In other words, its main motivation or raison d'etre, and French speakers, I'm really sorry there for my terrible French accent, is to make a contribution to social and or environmental sustainability. Now, let's not forget, they are not charities. So social enterprises are still concerned with their own economic sustainability. They still need to generate income in sustainable ways. But the balance or stress or emphasis on the different types of sustainability that are sought are different for social enterprises in comparison to for-profit organisations. If you're not familiar with or comfortable with the concept of a social enterprise, you might want to click on the link in this folder that's going to take you to the Jericho Foundation. It's a great social enterprise. It's located in Birmingham in the UK, and it's especially clever because its purpose is to address two quite different issues. First, it gives employment and skills-based training to ex-offenders who typically find it really quite difficult to gain employment when they're released from prison. And second, the organisation deals with recycling as an environmental concern. Anyway, you can take a look at those if you want to explore further, or if you feel you need an example of a social enterprise in practice. So, let's try and collate our thoughts so far. So if I draw my baseline here, and this is going to be quite crude, but never mind, this can represent time. So here we have probably near the beginning of human life, so I can put my little Lego caveman here, which is probably when the first for-profit trading began. And at this end, we have the present day. So I'm going to put my little Lego spaceship here. So I can draw my first line to represent for-profit organisations, okay? Now, I'm going to keep it simple. So at this point, we're not concerned about the growth or decline in the number of for-profits. They just exist. They always have done, and they all have existed mainly with the sole aim to generate profit. But around here, we saw the birth of the first social enterprises. So I'm going to draw another line here. Let me change colour. And again, we're not concerned about the number of enterprises. They just kind of exist. And again, they're strongly present as a type of organisation in the present day. And around here, for-profit organisations started to produce and crucially publicise their own social and environmental projects, which we can describe loosely as CSR or corporate social responsibility projects. One of the problems, though, to emerge in recent years has been the issue of greenwashing. Let me write that down for you. If you don't know about the concept, it describes the practice of companies endorsing or embracing some sort of environmental issue, but usually, though, for marketing purposes. Remember what we said about consumers demanding from their corporations that they become more socially and environmentally responsible. This can be quite superficial, though. So that whilst, for example, say a juice company may adopt recyclable packaging and it will advertise this as a more environmentally friendly practice to its consumer market, more hidden aspects of the product, so for example, its organisational environment, its supply chain and so on, these could be less so. They could involve practices that are actually socially or environmentally harmful. So consumers have started to get really smart to this, and they started to demand more transparency from the companies from which they buy their products and services. At the same time, a growing number of entrepreneurs who, importantly, span both social and for-profit types of enterprises have started to say, hang on a minute, if we're really serious about being an organisation that genuinely cares rather than pursuing greenwashing purely for marketing purposes, then we should be ensuring that all parts of the organisation and the companies involved in our supply chain are socially and environmentally responsible. Thus, we can then morally tell our consumers that they are buying ethically made products, and maybe it will challenge existing accepted business practices and encourage other companies to re-evaluate the scope and the depth of their responsibility. And this idea gave birth to the socio-economic concept of the B Corporation, which I'm going to put up here. And you can see comparatively it's still relatively new. And this is what we're going to be focusing on for the rest of this section of Unit 3. So, when you're ready to move on, and maybe after you've spent a while exploring Benetton and the Jericho Foundation, for example, click on the next folder. We're going to start to be looking at the different perspectives towards understanding the responsibilities towards businesses.